So the talk is breaking barriers, thriving with ADHD in the tech industry specifically. It's not going into what is ADHD all that much, although we do cover a little bit of that, because I realise some people attending will not be having ADHD. Maybe they work with someone who has ADHD and would like to learn some. So we'll cover some. So I was going to say, it is still morning for you, so good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. So whatever your reasons for being here are valid. Everyone's welcome. Completely judgment-free zone. If there's anything you want to say on chat or ask on chat, even if you think you're not sure how to word it, I will take the presumption that you mean no harm. So don't worry about having to write it in such a way. Just take that pressure off yourself. So how many have we got in? I was going to say a show of hands. How many of you have heard ADHD mentioned in the workplace? But I can see Tracy and Kelly definitely, because we're hosting this this session. Simon, have you had ADHD mentioned much in your? Is he able to talk?
Hi. People don't really. No, it doesn't really get mentioned too much in my immediate job. No.
Okay, cool. Interesting, because it's one of them things which is becoming more and more spoken about. The classic, everyone's got ADHD now, which is a personal bug of mine, because the real ADHD and some of the traits ADHD are very far apart. If it hurts you in life, that's more like ADHD. If you struggle a little bit, but you can get over it, maybe that's not. But anyway, I'm not a professional for diagnosis. Okay, so I wanted to do a quick exercise to demonstrate something. So I have to word it carefully because I'm not allowed to lead you down a path. So I would like everybody on the call to think of a ball. Okay. Now that ball is on a table, and somebody pushes that ball. That's the 3 instructions. Everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Good. So, and by the way, there's no right or wrong answer. There's no if you get it right, you get a prize. If you get it wrong, you've got something wrong. It's nothing like that at all. So, what was the ball you had in your mind?
It was blue with stars, white stars.
Okay. Simon, you feel comfortable to say?
Yeah, just an orange ball, average size, like a tennis ball size.
Cool. Tracy, do you?
I can't picture things in my brain, so it was just a ball.
Okay.
It was a word.
And the table, same. I assume for Tracy, it's the same. It's a concept of a table.
Yeah, it's a concept of a table.
Yeah, Simon.
And mine was a square table.
Okay. Cool.
Square table wood.
Okay.
Mine was my dining room table. It's like a chunky wooden table.
Okay. And when that ball was pushed, did you see a person doing it? And what happened to the ball after it was pushed?
My wife pushed
could
it
see
and
a
it
person.
rolled off the table.
Yeah.
It rolled off the table. Okay.
Yeah.
And I saw a different person do it. It wasn't me who pushed it.
Okay. Did anything happen after it went off the table?
Nope.
Mine
Just-
bounced.
Yours bounced. Cool.
Yep.
Did it make any noise?
Yes.
Okay. So that demonstrates that all we mentioned was ball, table, and a person. And the variety of answers were, one had color and texture, because we had the it was a wooden table as well, not just a table. And then the other side we have Tracy, who had just the concepts of those things. Kellen, yours, the ball bounced and it made a noise. And did it go anywhere? What happened after that? Was that the end of the experience, or did it do something?
I can hear it. I could hear it bounce and then kind of slowly stop. It kind of comes closer together and then just rolls away.
Okay, cool.
So then my ball just got pushed and did nothing. I'm sorry, I can't picture things.
No, there's not. Don't be sorry. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So did it go off the table, or it was pushed and that was the end of the scenario? It was at a different place. That's all.
Yep, basically.
Mine, really, that's interesting, Tracy, because I mean, I can,
Oh, I don't know
I-
if it went to a different place. I just know it got pushed. I don't have I can't see
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
I just know the concept that it got pushed. I can't see anything.
Cool.
and my brain is very spatial where I can see it very clearly. I know the size of the table. I could even draw you everything and show you like images of what happened and then how it bounced and rolled off to the corner in the darkness of the edge of the scene in my head.
No,
Yeah.
there's just words.
So it's
I'm
really
sorry.
interesting that we're all experiencing life differently. So that was only what I just mentioned, or that exercise we just went through. That was only discovered within the last decade or so. I don't know the exact date, but it wasn't long ago, because everyone used to just talk and say, "Oh, can you picture this?" And that's the language, but no one ever like dove into what does that actually mean for people. And someone finally turned around and went, "Do you mean you actually see something? When you say picture a jacket potato, do you actually see a jacket potato or something like that?" And then it was a really interesting conversation of, well, yeah, it's an actual potato. It's hot as well, and it's got texture, and it's got all of this. And then the other person was like, no, I just have the idea of a potato. I don't. There's no visual, and there's nothing. There's none of the other stuff. So actually, I'm like yourself, Tracy. I'm on that side of I don't. It's a concept, and to try and explain to somebody how are you seeing a concept? Like, I don't know. I just am. That's just my experience of that exercise. Is it's not physical or visual, but I still use the words see a ball. But the idea is to demonstrate that we're all inside, no, behind our eyes. We're all we're processing the world completely differently. Is the point, and it's a complete spectrum from people who have the concepts to people who have. So it's really interesting, Kevin. You're actually the other end of the scale where you have lots and lots of attribute going on that weren't mentioned, but your brain filled them in. And like I said, none are right, none are wrong. What's really interesting is that people who are non-visual, it doesn't seem to have any impact on whether they're artistic, or are able to design. You think not being able to visually process something would make a difference, particularly for an artist, but it doesn't seem to, because their concept can still be put to page, for example. So that's the demonstration that we are all very different. You don't know what's going on behind somebody else's eyes. So hopefully that just gives you an insight into even if everybody on the call has been diagnosed with ADHD, autism, anything of neurodiversity, doesn't mean you're the same as somebody else who's had that same diagnosis. We're all individual in that diagnosis. So some things will be a struggle and some things will not. So it's you can't just use the same ADHD brush. This is how we handle ADHD people. This is how we handle autistic people, which is probably more common. With an autistic person, we have to handle them in a certain way. Like, not really. They're all just as individual. And that really is the point of that. So I can talk a little bit about my journey for diagnosis, or I could, which will take about 10 minutes, or I can get into the nitty gritty of the ADHD and tech and really the title of the presentation. So who wants to go to there? And show my whizzy PowerPoint presentation skills. And who wants to go there? I can maybe go to both if we've got time.
If we have time, I'd love both.
Okay. So
Same.
just same. Okay, cool. Let's have a drink. Okay, so I'll go with the the one on the right first, and we'll loop back to my personal side of it if we have time. Okay. Right, before we do that, do we want to grab a pen and paper, jot down stuff? I know me personally with my representation of ADHD, I've got lots of thoughts and ideas, and I've got really aha moments where you're going, oh yeah, oh that's good, and oh I could do this. Oh, you know what else that reminds me of? And each new idea makes me forget what the last epiphany was, and that's it. It's gone. That gets bumped, and then you quite often hear me say, "Oh, what was I going to say?" Because it's gone. It was in my head. Now it's gone. So I always like to say, if you want to take notes, now's a good time to grab them. But yeah, it's a very common phrase. I think if you're speaking to most people with ADHD that I've spoken to, a common phrase is what was I saying? Because it's transient. It's not in their brain anymore. Yeah. So, just sorry, like I say, it's I've moved things around so to make sure it's right. Oh yeah, so I'm going to go to the next slide actually before I do that. Because I just want to make a point that the ADHD, you have to look at it including a gender lens, because although anybody can have any of the symptoms, there's 20, 30 different symptoms. If you put 15 people with ADHD in a room, chances are not one of them would be the same. They all have different, they're pieces of different symptoms, and how much it affects them will vary. But what's crucial is, whilst all people with ADHD have different symptoms, it's particularly polarized when you look at it through gender perspectives. Now, I would be really interested to know whether that is due to observer effect or whether it's a true state. And I'm not sure how I'd get that answer. But historically, and still to this day, historically it was worse. To this day, it's still not great. Males are diagnosed way more than women, not because it's less common, but because men present generally, and these are all generalizations, so I apologize if I say anything it doesn't ring true. It's because I'm trying to do it's a general. It's not everybody, and I get that. But males generally, they're externalized, they're fidgety, they might disrupt the class when they're a kid. They're looking for that hyperactivity, impulsivity. They can be very angry. There's something called oppositional defiance disorder, which is a really interesting one, where if you were doing the dishes, for example, and then someone comes in and says, "Oh, are you going to do the dishes?" Well, no, I was, but now you've asked me to. I'm not going to, because I just can't do that. That's oppositional defiance disorder, which is a really interesting element to ADHD, and does tend to be on the male side. But if you can recognize that in yourself or recognize that in others, and that's why I like to do these talks, because it's really helpful to go, oh, I've been in situations where it's felt a bit weird and I didn't know why that reaction happened internally or externally. Knowing there is a thing means you can research that thing and see if there's a way of working around it. Probably not going to change it because it's it's the way your brain processes things, but you can approach it from a different perspective. Anyway, that tends to be the male. Female tend to be they're described as daydreaming. I'm not sure it's the greatest description. That's generally the description I hear is daydreaming. But the point is, they're not.
I was going to jump in. I was going to jump in and say that was me as a kid. My brain went right out the window with daydreams.
Yeah, literally looking out the window and you're out there. But which is more typical in females. So it doesn't get diagnosed because you're not causing a problem for anybody, which is really bad, because you've still got problems yourself, but because you're not causing a problem for somebody else, you're less likely to get help for it. Which I hope that's changing. I believe it is. I've got 2 young children in school, and a good friend who lives around the corner, and her daughter has ADHD, and it's been picked up really young. I think she was 7, which I think is fairly young. And they're doing something about it, which is really nice. And and particularly the oppositional defiance disorder, we identify that she has that, and therefore don't put your typical situations. Just be a little bit kinder with your language, and it makes her a notch. We're not pandering, but we're conscious of if we don't explain why something needs to be done, or so it's conscious of the language you use can have a big difference. So yeah, if you look at the slide, as you can see, totally different on left, totally different on right. I deliberately didn't color it as blue, pink as the back boxes, but I did realize I have done that with the fonts, so I might update that. Don't think it. No, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, so interesting whether people knew there was such a difference. Simon, were you aware there's such a difference in the how ADHD presents?
Not really, no.
Yeah. And
I
also,
can.
oh, sorry.
I was going to say, go ahead, Simon.
Okay.
For me, I have 5 children, 3 of them with ADHD or ADHD, and I am very aware of this dealing with the school system in the US. My daughter was seen as not troublesome at all and would be rewarded for being outgoing while my sons would get in trouble for being outbursts and things like that. And I'm like, they're displaying the same behaviors in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Sam was very inattentive, and they saw him as quite a challenge. He got suspended numerous times. I had to take on the school board for it. And it was like, no, he's telling you he's behind in this class, so he wants to put time into this class, and you've said he's skipping it. No, he's seeing what logically needs to be done to get ahead.
Yeah.
It's really surprising how few of the school systems and teachers are trained to look for true traits of ADHD and ADHD.
Yeah, that's really interesting, especially the autism side where people can get in real trouble. And I read an article or saw a video, I can't remember, of a lady who helps people with autism spectrum, and the person didn't get the job because the question was, if you are on the edge of a cliff, for example, do you think about jumping? And
oh gosh.
the answer is, well, yeah, I thought about it because it'd be cool to see if I can fly, for example, or what it feels like, but the assumption is that answer means that you were intending to kill yourself.
Yeah.
But that question is too open. It's a very clear answer is yes, I have thought about it, but your interpretation of that answer is not how I meant it. From a autism spectrum, because it can be very direct, but it's the interpretation of rather than the intention. So being aware of those things when with hiring practices is quite interesting. You see my brain's going all over the place, which being a part of what I have to go through, so I'm trying to get back on track. What I was going to say is I made the point earlier that it's the symptoms vary, and although I put some on the left, some on the right, everybody I've ever met has the emotional regulation, the anxiety, the worry. I think that's probably one of the worst bits of ADHD is the rejection sensitive dysphoria. It's called RSD, and to explain that to someone who doesn't know what that is, if you've ever been on a night out and had way too much to drink, and you wake up the next day and you have that fear, some people call it the beer fear. You wake up in that fear, who did I speak to, what did I say, what text message did I send, and you have that real deep fear. It's that all the time, every day, when you ask, there's a group of people going out and you say to them, oh, can I come along? And they're like, yeah, if you want. Now, that probably means, yes, we would like you to come. We're happy for you to come. It would be great if you came. But somebody who's suffering with RSD would hear, no, not really. it doesn't matter to me whether you come or don't come. And that's a very different thing. And then you get that horrible feeling of no one likes me. I had it in a WhatsApp chat the other day. Everybody was sending a message back and forward, jokes and laughing. And then I sent one and nobody responded. So my thought was, well, everybody in that group hates me. It was about 50 people in the group. And my first thought was, no, I'm an imposter. I shouldn't be in that group. But thankfully, I'm aware of RSD, and so is my wife. So I went and spoke to her and said, look, this is what's happened. There's back and forward, and then everyone's just stopped and ghosted me, and I feel like it's personal. And it's just a very simple thing. It's like, it's 1 o'clock. They've probably gone back to work. Everybody was talking on the lunch break, and they've probably just gone back to work. It's not personal, but I just hadn't been able to see that. But I love the fact that because I'm aware of RSD, I can speak to people, and I'll just actually I can be very open and ask the question, go, look, this is how I felt. Can I just check am I right? Am I wrong? And that's hard because if you're right, then that's a hard conversation to have. But not in, I've been diagnosed 2-3 years, can't remember when it was, and not once has anyone ever said, yeah, that really bad feeling you were thinking is how I meant it. That never happens. But in the tech world, where that relates is maybe you're doing a code review and there's a bit of code that's not great, and the feedback is, need to update that. Someone with ADHD could feel personally attacked, like genuinely you insulted me and attacked me by saying the code wasn't good enough. Now, the reality is it just wasn't ready. Code needs changing from time to time. So it's being aware of that and making your colleagues and your bosses aware can have a real impact on how you feel about yourself and your place in the world. Because they're aware of it, they can be aware of the impact of their words. So, and a lot of people have RSD. It's can feel really overwhelming, but there are practical strategies that work, which I've shared, and there are more. So I'll move on. Does anyone have any questions on what I've said, or any things which you think would be expressed better in a different way?
I think this was all excellent. As somebody who was diagnosed as ADHD in 2005 and then autistic in 2007, it all resonates. No.
Glad you got the diagnosis. I don't know if I feel sad that you got the diagnosis, because it can be painful, but it can be also not. So I will express no.
It was an eye opener for me. I always knew my brain worked differently. My oldest child was diagnosed, which of course this is how most women get diagnosed. And then they go, do you think it may have come from you? One of those. And you're like, but no, my symptoms are different. And they're like, you're a woman. He's a male. He's a boy child.
Yeah.
And that's when they had me start researching women with ADHD, and I looked up traits, and there were 4 of them that you might have experienced, and I had 3 of them that day. So that pretty much made me comfortable in understanding and being diagnosed professionally.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's a big relief for a lot of people when they're diagnosed as an adult, because it's, oh right, okay, that makes sense. There's a lot, and then but you also sometimes get anger, because it's, hang on, everyone else has been living life on easy mode, and I've been running on hard mode for the last 30-40 years. So you kind of go through phases, and then it's acceptance. It's very similar to the grief sequence, and you just have to go through it. But the more you learn from literature and from other people's experience, it becomes easier to understand what's gone on yourself.
I think for me, autism, you want things to make sense. People say you don't get social cues. No, I get social cues that make sense. I like things to, patterns. I like things that make sense. And so for me, everything fell into place, and I understood my mother's fear about it, of getting me diagnosed. She felt that she had failed me. She had been told that many times, if your child has ADHD, it's because you're a bad parent. And I think this was a relief to be able to offer that to her too and say, you didn't do anything wrong. In fact, you were a very high anxiety mother saddled with an ADHD child that had high intelligence and high energy. I'm not sure how she survived me. So I found that it was a relief and often offered her a lot of closure.
Yeah, but my parents aren't particularly supportive of the diagnosis, which was hard. And I think it's because the same they felt it was a failing of theirs in upbringing, because there's four of us and I'm the only one with a diagnosis. Although I look at my sisters and not a professional, so in no way can I diagnose, but I'm seeing behaviours and going, it's not just me in the room. And see my dad, like, I know where it came from. It wasn't my mum, it's my dad. But it's really interesting to be able to do that, but they don't want to be labeled, or they've got through how they've got through 70, 80 years of life. It's not going to make any difference now.
It's a personal journey, absolutely. Yeah. But I do tease my youngest sister. I'm like, do you have any idea how ADHD that was, what you just did? And she'll look at me and go, shut up.
Yeah, no, one of my sisters particularly is, but yeah, it's funny as long as you can laugh at it. So
yes.
So that's looking at the right lens, but particularly in terms of finding the right job for you in tech. So this is a conversation about tech, so that's where my examples have gone. Doesn't mean there is a higher prevalence of neurodiversity in the tech industry. I don't know whether that's because we're drawn to it or whether there's another cause. I don't really know, but it's definitely a different ratio. I think you're twice as likely to be neurodiverse. I should check my numbers beforehand, but you are a lot more likely.
It's 40% in IT. It's 40%, 37 right around there.
Yeah, and non-IT is around about 7-8%, isn't it? I think. So it's
correct. There's an ADHD problem in IT. There's no question about it.
Yeah, there's an ADHD concentration, definitely. So what I would say is, of all the symptoms of ADHD, all the bits, whichever one, whatever flavour you are, or whatever flavour your colleague or direct report is, there are certain roles which fit nicely to certain factors that might be present. So if you enjoy puzzle solving, because I really like puzzle solving, I find my time in SQL, especially when there's a problem, it's like being a detective. And people, how can you enjoy? You sat there and just looked at that, hundreds of lines of code, and you're happy. I'm like, yeah, because I'm trying to find that problem. It's being a detective and figuring out I missed something, or this join's not right, or there's something wrong. I find that really fun. But I would say reviewing code, SQL particularly, database code, it's not always that. It depends on your job, how prevalent that is. Whereas software development, particularly writing software from, so Python, Java, C#, languages like that. If you really enjoy puzzle solving, that's potentially a good career choice, at least one to try. It depends on where you are in your tech career. You might have already found yourself in a position just naturally over time. But I'm hoping some people might attend this session or hear this session and kind of, I don't know where to go next. And this is intended for a first look, have a look over here. Maybe that's something for you. So let's look. I'm just checking my notes all over the place. I'm going to ignore the notes. And yeah, I don't want to read from the screen either. Yeah, people can see what's on there. But physicality is a particularly interesting one. If you like going into the office or you prefer staying at home, try and factor that into your career choices. Some are, like a project manager, I imagine, will be much more, you need to be with people, and that's more face to face. And if that's not your thing, then have a look for a career where that's, you know, coding, particularly cybersecurity, where you're again, you're looking for a problem, data science, where you are spending long periods of time in the code world. Maybe they're more your good fit, where you'll be a good fit. And I think what I was trying to get to with all this is, if you are not enjoying where you are, consider that it might be because of ADHD traits rather than it being a bad job or a bad manager, although it could certainly be those things. If you've done the same role 3 times in a row and had the same problem 3 times in a row, is it the type of job you're going for, or is it the people? And it's good to have that moment of, well, let me have a look of the ADHD facets that I feel I have, or someone else has, and explore whether they are having an impact. Is what I would say. The really interesting one. So that was talking about working for, well, mostly working for an organization, but there's a very high rate of people who are in startups, and they're entrepreneurs, and what I believe that's down to is the risk taking. It's ADHD can present as, or part of ADHD, it can be that they actually enjoy risk taking. 2 seconds, my children have just come home from school. On the chat, all right. Love you. See you later. The children I was talking about are home. Because it is 3:30 in the afternoon in the UK. Yeah. Has anyone got any comments on what I've said there, or want me to go into explore anything? Have any questions on anything?
The red flags at the bottom are interesting, because if you give me a micromanager, I will slowly hunt them down and kill them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think so for me, actually, I don't know if it's ADHD or and that's a really difficult bit, because not everything's ADHD. When you first get diagnosed, everything is about your ADHD or your autism or whatever your diagnosis. And then over time, I've personally found it backs off a little bit, and you realize there are other things that affect you, your personality. It's not just that. And I was having some therapy, and what became clear after only 2 or 3 sessions, that you have one of your driving, can't remember what the phrase was, it was one of your core beliefs, I think she said it was, is fairness. And so all the things I've described of things I've had problems with, or things that I don't like, or things that are those descriptions, you could summarize them all to do with fairness, which I'd never realized before. And so when it comes down to micromanagement, I hate micromanagement, and it's partly because I think it's unfair. Why are you challenging? I see micromanagement as kind of an attack, you're focusing on me, and surely you've got something better to do. And it's not fair.
I find it a waste of time.
Yeah, which is not fair, right? Because they're earning money.
It's interesting, yeah.
We're earning money. So why is your earning money just looking at what I'm doing? That's not fair.
You're slowing me down. I'm going to get you out of the way.
Yeah,
that's how most people describe it when they watch me go after somebody who is, and this is the word, if you give me a poor manager, or you give me a poor coworker that maybe, I'm just going to say this, that no one's been able to get rid of, I'll get rid of them. They'll be gone. They'll leave on their own very quickly.
It'll be their choice. Yeah, their choice. You've directed them there.
Yes, and I'll do it in a very, very constructive manner. But I'll be like, you need to come up to speed, or you need to get out of my way. This is what we're about to achieve, and here's our goals. Can you achieve these? If you can't, you need to move.
Yeah.
And I'm no nonsense about it. And that goes for managers as well. So I have always said, I must have a good manager. If you give me a bad manager, I have fired my manager 4 times in my career already. So we know this happens.
Yeah, I've had a project manager. I had one project manager for about a year on this project, and they changed the project manager. I can't remember why. And it took less than 2 weeks. It was basically, look, you either reinstate the previous one, or you need to find someone else who's going to do the development, because we are not going to work together, because he was a micromanager. Thankfully not had to do it 4 times. That's tough if you've been put in that position. Although you may enjoy it. I'm not saying it's a problem. it can be fun
I ran
sometimes.
into somebody while I was on vacation that came into the restaurant when I was were we in Vienna? Yes. And they came up and he says, "Hi, Kellen, it's Brian. We used to work together." And he remembers me firing the manager that they had, that I moved the entire DBA team into operations because I went to HR and said it was a conflict of interest for production DBAs to report to a development manager.
Interesting.
So, yeah,
But
I don't
that's
fool
his
around.
memory of you.
Yeah, that's what he remembers. Yeah, he remembers that of me. And we hadn't worked together in 11 years. Yeah, it was, oh, I'm sorry, 21 years ago, 2004. So it was a while ago. But yeah, that's one thing you don't do. This list I do agree with. A lot of them are, the emphasis on FaceTime. My sister always says, "Oh my gosh, you're making me turn my camera on Teams again." It drives her crazy. So yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot of these things in the list that are definite red flags.
Yeah.
Yes, I always ignore the FaceTime thing when they tell me to turn on camera. I just ignore it. It's like
Yeah.
you don't need to see me. I'm here.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And I meant to say that at the beginning, actually, in terms of, if you want to put your camera on, feel free. If you don't, feel free. It shouldn't impact the meeting at all. But I forgot. It's one of them things. Yeah, and the rigidity of 9 to 5, because again, it's pointless. Sometimes I don't have that many hours of work to do that day, or sometimes I need to work more hours, and I think it's fair that I take them back another time. Or actually, I just work better from 10, 11 o'clock. I'm not great in the morning, but I can work really late and not get tired. Forcing people into a schedule that doesn't work it doesn't fit everybody, is silly. So having flexibility, to have a schedule that works for you is a good one. Yeah. So this is usually intended as the last slide. I told you I've completely messed up the order of these, so I might come back to this one. But the point is, having someone with ADHD, whether it's you or somebody else, it's a difference. The fact it's called disorder kind of bugs me. It's a difference rather than a disorder. We're all different flavors of different skill sets, of different ways that work for us. But you are not broken would be the key. If you're newly diagnose ADHD or suspect ADHD, that's the most critical thing I think I can ever say is you're not broken. You're being forced
James,
into. Yeah.
I have a problem with that disorder as well. I actually see my ADHD as a superpower. Most people who work with me will see it that way.
Yeah. Exactly.
Have you had folks because I remember somebody online said, "Well, Kellen has ADHD. It's a disorder. She does fine." And I was like, "No, it's not." I was so confused by it because I have shifted my thinking so much. And this idea that it's only a disorder if you put me in a very small box and say you can only work within these parameters.
Yeah.
That's when it becomes a disorder, is when somebody isolates in corners and says this is the only way that we work, versus if you let me work the way that I do. And whenever I go to a company, I did this even with Redgate, where I come in with Buck Woody recommended it to me when he was mentoring me. There's an assessment that you can do, the Clifton assessment, and it says this is how to work best with me as an employee. I come in with that and hand it to my boss and say, I come with an employee manual. And it explains very much, even though it never says that I'm ADHD or anything, what my strengths are and what opportunities there are to make me better. I say, if you utilize me this way, you can rule the world. And it is true. I mean, I can handle a workload like nobody else. I can make changes to culture in communities that you never would expect inside your organization. But it's if you work with me.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's really important, where people are like, no, it's a disorder. It's only a disorder if you make it so.
Yeah, I 100%. It's not a disorder. I don't have a problem with the phrase superpower, but I do try and use it cautiously, because it's not always. There are awful parts of ADHD, and I think superpower sometimes that could belittle or ignore those really bad bits. But yeah, absolutely, there are times where. And there's some examples. I think, was it SAP or was it IBM, or there was a challenge which was going to take 6 months to fix, and they put it to a I think it was autistic, could have been ADHD. I think it was autistic, and he just hyper focused on it, and he had a problem to solve, and I think he knocked it in, and he knocked it in like 6 weeks instead of it being 3 months, because it. And what I was going to mention is actually it might have been ADHD, because I was going to mention it's an interest based, the way we our motivation is interest based, not reward based. And again, it's a generalization, but for most. So that the really awkward bit when you've worked on a project for 12 months, and it lands, and team are elated and they go and celebrate, and the ADHD person doesn't come out, and it's like, because I don't have that. Wow, it's done. I'm like, cool. What's the next thing?
I don't need to run the victory lap, is what I tell people. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with it. I'm thrilled that y'all want to celebrate this, but I don't need the victory lap. I want to get on to the next challenge. And at the same time, I also know that if you got little bits and pieces that need to be finished up at the end, I may fail you. So I'm going to connect myself and partner with somebody who's really good at that, to protect me from those parts of my ADHD that are not superpower, that are weaknesses in me. And I think that's important too, to understand where I am weak, somebody else is going to be strong. Find that person.
Yeah, absolutely. Pair up with, combine the skills. Yeah, it's definitely towards the end of the project where the challenge has gone. It's not interesting now. Put me on something else.
You got it.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's not a deficit, it's a difference. There's lots of D's, but yeah, not disorder, not deficit, different. I see we've lost Simon. Just to let you know if you noticed. Is this
He
being
got called away too earlier, just so you know, for work.
Okay, yeah. I just realised it is being recorded, so it'll be for something. Okay, talk to me later, please. Yeah, all right. Okay, love you. Children want attention. Right. So this is the particular pieces. We've kind of gone over some of them. Like I say, I've got this. That was supposed to be the end slide before, so it's gone round a little bit. So I was going to try and find where I was. Somewhere. See, I haven't done a presentation for a while. Out of practice.
That happens.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so as you can see, some of the main challenges coming to time management. It was on an earlier slide, but just as a one-liner. But time management is can be a real challenge. And again, they're not character flaws or anything like that. They're just neurological differences. The inability to task paralysis, talking about specifically. I know I need to do something. I really want to do something. I just can't. And it can look like, well, you're just not, this job needs doing, and you just sat there doing nothing. Like, no, I'm very actively beating myself up on about the fact that I'm not doing the thing that I also want to do, but I'm stuck at the moment. Is the spinning wheel of loading, and I just have to wait until I'm unstuck, and then I'll work. Benefit being, I'll probably work 5 times faster than somebody else who didn't get stuck. So I will catch up. But it's important to have that understanding with your colleagues that there will be periods of time where you might not output much, provided you can work with that, and especially if you can identify what might start that off for you. So if you get overwhelmed by the fact that it's you've overpromised, as an example, because you want to people please. That's another element. Is I want you to be happy, so I know it's going to take 5 days, but I reckon I can put it out in 3, which will make you really happy with me. But the problem is you've said that to 3 other stakeholders, and now you've got 15 days of work to do in 3, and it's not going to happen. And then you realise it, and then you're stuck, and then nothing happens. That's what usually looks like for me. What causes task paralysis for me. A good way of solving for that, especially the you've taken on too much, or if there's a lot to do and it's a week away, it just doesn't interest me. I will work really hard on it the day before. So I've said that to my my children's teachers, is when they because my youngest son is ADHD, has ADHD. Then we'll give him extended timelines. Like, no, don't give him shorter timelines. If he's got 2 weeks to do it, tell him it's due in a week, or tell him to put it. You want to see it half done in a week or something like that. If you move it back, you're just moving the period where it becomes interesting back. It's not helping. So that's again my experience of it. But from what I hear, and everything I mentioned is generalizations, as I said. The time perception piece, I'll drop down to the bottom right. It's linked in terms of, I think I can get something. Oh, it's a really interesting one actually, and it's a tool I want people to take away if they can, because we use it in my house. If you tell me that we're going out in 10 minutes, that is enough time to put a load of washing on, go have a shower, get changed, have a shave. 10 minutes is a long time. But if you tell me I've got 600 seconds, that is not a long time. So just rephrase it, even though I know cognitively, I know 10 minutes, 600 seconds are the same thing. They're not. To me, 10 minutes is ages, and 600 seconds is no time at all. So that's been a really good one for our household with, when it's time to go out, tell us in seconds, not minutes. And then we don't take on a task which means that you're all at the door waiting for me to go because I've committed too much time elsewhere. And that's the time perception. But it goes the other way, and I think that's why hyperfocus. So looking at the focus at the top, I think the reason for it is it goes the other way, in that I forget to drink for hours and hours and hours, and I don't go to the toilet until it's at the point where I might physically burst, because I've just not been paying attention to those symptoms. To those not symptoms, signals. Because I'm in, especially when I'm in code, I'm just in it, and when I come up and surface, it's gone dark. Everyone's gone home. But I think that's because I can't perceive time properly, and that's why also you can get a lot of work done. Might seem like you're getting a lot of work done quicker than everyone else, but it's because I'm in the zone. And if you're a manager of such a person, or you are such a person, try to put blocks in your diary, because if someone comes and disturbs that 8 hour straight coding session, I think this saying is that if you get disturbed, your task switch. I think it's you might be off task for 10 minutes, say, but the reality is it's more like 20 because it takes time to get back on task. Somebody with ADHD might not get back on task. It might be the next day. It might be 3 days later. So distractions really are, if you can manage them so that they're not distracted or you're not distracted, that's a key piece to do. So on an earlier slide, I mentioned about identify your hyperfocus, how it happens, and it's not always easy to know. If you can know, then you can set up the environment to get in there and not be pushed out of the focus zone. So I covered the context switching and missing meetings. For example, it's because I'm not I don't have chronograph, a clock in my head to say, oh, it's about. I went for lunch an hour ago, so I know I've got a meeting at 2. No, I need a reminder. Set reminders. That will really help you to know what's coming up and not forget to go to things. But critically, make the default on an Outlook on a meeting alert 5 minutes before or 10 minutes before, because if it goes off at that time, you might be in the middle of doing something. You might not even see it. You might be in focus mode, or if you're in a Teams call with somebody else, I think sometimes that puts your computer into focus mode, and that alert won't go off. So the alert should be a few minutes before, which still doesn't help the problem of not going off, but it might improve things. Yeah. So the bottom right is something I wanted to take away. Timeliness is real. It's not poor planning. It can often be you just failed to plan. Like, I didn't. I just don't have that ability to see time as you do. So sorry. We covered this earlier, the RSD, and I think I do want to put ODD on this slide in future. I'm becoming more aware of it, and mostly because I have a child who he suffers with that more than I do. The rejection sensitive dysphoria, apart from it sounding great, it's quite a nice thing to say. It's physical pain. They've done MRI scans, and it actually triggers the physical pain receptors in an ADHD person's brain when they feel rejected. It is literally painful, which I think is quite interesting. So then that thing of, well, everyone's a bit ADHD, you don't have that miswiring is horrible, and you probably don't have that. And if you did, you'd know about it. The communication patterns picks up from what I was saying about flow state and planning things in advance. Different communication styles. I love Copilot in Outlook. I don't use it so much in Teams, but I can come off as being really abrupt on an email because I have a need. I'm portraying that need to you. I want an answer. I'm not necessarily very good at the human interaction bit around that makes it a nice interaction. So Copilot really helps me with, can you just check this for tone? Does this come across as abrupt, which is typically what my default is? I'll go very quickly on the masking because it's a big topic, but you should look up masking if you're not aware of what masking is. The short version is you put on a front to either mitigate your ADHD tendencies, but also what's really interesting, and I've explained this to my wife, which she finds quite funny, and it took a while to understand, is that the version of James that she knows is not the same James that someone at work will know. It's not the same James as someone at the petrol station. It's not. It's literally my what's the word? personality really is handcrafted to make you like me. If I'm in a one-on-one situation, you are getting the you version of me, and it's not intentional. And it can come across really badly actually sometimes when there's accents and patterns of speech where people have been accused, you're taking the mick because you're saying things the way I say things, and that could be an accent, from different parts of the world, and it can come across as being you're taking the mickey out of me, taking the trying to think of a correct phrase. You're making a joke of me, and it's completely unintentional. My accent starts to go close to your accent, just because that's what my brain does. It's not intentional. So knowing that can mean you don't take offense if someone does it with you, but it also means you might be able to explain that to somebody up front, or maybe hold it back a bit if you define it as a problem. If it's not a problem, don't hold it back. But being aware of it gives you that option at least. But the bit at the bottom, the exhaustion from constant masking, I didn't realize how much I suffered with that. So Sequel Bits is an amazing conference. I always recommend anybody to go. And I volunteer there for all the days. So I'm usually there 5 or 6 days. And I never really realized before that on the Sunday or the Monday, because it ends on a Saturday, I would quite often fall out with my family. I'd have an argument with, I'd be really short with the kids, or just not my normal self, and had no idea it, because I didn't feel physically tired, but I've done too much peopling. I've been around too many people for too long, and I will try and protect myself by being horrible to people so that they go away from me. Unfortunately, you hurt the closest to you. They're the easiest to hurt because you feel like you can get away with it. And being aware of that means my wife is great and go, look, this is where you're at. Because I'm really bad at self-recognition of where I'm at. This is where you're at. You need to go cut a tree down, or go for a bike ride, or you need to do something because you've overexerted and you need some time to yourself. Does that resonate with anyone?
Yep.
I always need my quiet space.
Yeah. And that's, some people can take offense with that. Why don't you want to be around me? And it's like, it's not you. I need for there to be nobody around. I still love and want to be around you, just not for the next hour, because I need the recovery time. Yeah. Welcome back, Simon. Good to see you.
Hi, sorry, I had to drop off again.
Not a problem. Yeah. Need to do what you need to do, which is fine. So, and then there's a line at the bottom. RSD affects most people with ADHD, not everybody. And it's one of the most misunderstood, because just that language change I mentioned earlier on, of I know that you don't take the statement of, yeah, you can come if you want, you don't take that well, because you've explained that to me. I won't use that terminology. But if you don't know about it, or you haven't explained it to anybody, that's why it's one of the most misunderstood. Like, well, why? I mean, they never come out, like, because they may not feel the invite is as valid as other people do. Low self-worth is a big one, especially for late diagnosed ADHD. So, and it's not quite on this. I'll go off on a track, but quickly. Someone with late diagnosed ADHD, or not diagnosed as a child, for example, by the time they hit 14 or 15, they've experienced an extra. So it's not just the number; it's the neurotypical number plus 100,000 negative comments, negative interactions in school. You know, and they could be small, like, "Oh, can you just stop shaking your leg?" Or you're daydreaming, can you come into the room? And but an extra 100,000 by the time you're 15 is crazy. So you wonder why people have projection sensitivity, because they probably felt really projected for a long period of their childhood. That's my guess at it. Obviously, there's different people, different childhoods, different everything. Yeah, cool. So what works? We said, you know, I tried to make them not too negative. Be aware of them, and I tried to give the things you can do whilst on the slide. But this slide is much more focused on that. So the one thing I would say, and one I really want to mention actually, is on there, which is body doubling, which I'll go to in a second, because it's awesome. For me, it's really awesome in terms of just helping me get stuff done. That's a lot of strategies. I would say pick 2, 3. Don't try and do everything at once, because you change too much at once. Who knows what is a good thing, what's a bad thing? Just try and work them into your work life over time. Most accommodations, says under there, are under $500. They don't have to be expensive, and they can have a massive impact. So I would say it's a body doubling. Has anyone heard of body doubling?
Yes.
Yes. Good.
I have not actually.
Okay. So, and it may be known by other names as well. For me, so this is about virtual co-working, which my wife, who is not diagnosed, does this all the time. She gets on a Teams call with a colleague, and they just have an open line. They're not talking to each other. They're not in a meeting, and they're not showing as busy. It's not for that purpose. They are just on a line, because that's what you would, in an office situation, you would have people around you, and it's actually, you just work better when somebody is there. You don't have to be doing the same task. You don't have to be talking, but there's somebody there, and that helps. The example that I first used in the home, that's really good, is it's kind of a task paralysis. Body doubling helps me get past it. But say we've had dinner, we've sat down watching telly, and it's time to do the dishes, and I want to do the dishes. I don't want them to be left, and it's my turn. And you know, I really want to, but I just can't get started. And it can easily be portrayed, you know, as laziness, or you're not doing it because it's somebody else's job, or whatever. And what we found is, if my wife comes to the kitchen with me and stands with me whilst I wash the first fork or the first cup, that's it. She can go then. But as long as there's someone there to start the task, and like I say, she doesn't actually have to be doing the task. She's just stood talking to me whilst I get started. And once I'm started, I'll just keep going and get it all done. It's the problem is the task initiation, and body doubling really helps me for that. So that's why I want to share that one, because it's free. It's helps you get over some things that can be problems. You know, if you can't get started and that's becoming a problem for you, it helps you get past that. And just having that conversation with someone, you can start that journey of understanding each other a bit better, which I quite like. I forgot this one at the very beginning. I apologise. In the second one in the middle, written instructions for everything. I've started doing that all the time, which is, if I'm on the phone, I don't know why I've done that. If I'm on the phone and someone is asking something of me, I now have no problem saying, cool, we'll have the conversation, but you need to follow it up with an email, because I'll probably forget. And it's not intentional, and it's not that you're not valuable. It's just my brain is not going to store that phone call for later review. If you stick it in an email and it's on my, or write a note, post-it note, then I can make use of it. I've heard that for children with ADHD as well, where something's not sticking. I'm trying to tell you how to do this and this and this, and I've told you 10 times, I've told you 20 times. Like, cool. So stop telling me. Write it down so I can see it, and the problem that I'm not doing it will go away, because I'll walk down the stairs, and we have this here. We have post-it notes at the bottom of the stairs. So as they get to the bottom and it says, I don't know, put your shoes away or go do your teeth or something like that, it's not that they're not meaning to do it or they're not willing to do it. It's just not in their brain cycle. So written notes, written instructions. So yeah, if you're on Windows 11 and you have at least the 2024 H224, I think the update was. If you Windows Shift L, or is it Windows Control L? Anyway, it's called Captions, and it's on all Windows devices. Actually, I realise I'm showing this screen. There you go. So it is Windows Control and L, and it will put captions. Literally, you can have it on the top of your screen, overlay, or you can have it at the bottom or at the top and resize your content. But it's all locally processed, and it's only for you to see. So if you're in a meeting and your brain drifts off because maybe it's not your time, or maybe it's just not that interesting, or whatever reason, if you have captions on, because maybe the transcription's not on the call, for example, you can scroll back up and go, oh, what was said? I missed, I'm back in the room now. What was said? What did I miss? So I think captions is absolutely amazing for that. But also, again, this is about being in a supportive organization. Don't be afraid. Everyone gets caught out with when ask a question and they've zoned out, ADHD or not ADHD. I think you remove the fear of saying, oh, yeah, sorry, I zoned out. Can you just give me a quick catch up? And Copilot in Teams actually is really good for that. So use tech to help you get through things. There's a load more on there. I'm happy for anyone to give me a shout on LinkedIn or just have a chat. I'll happily give more. I'm happy to share these slides as well. Although they're just kind of overviews, it just remind you to things that can help. So I think we covered. So breaking tasks into steps, I mentioned. That's again, it's the time thing. Written instructions, visual task boards. I've got it on there because I hear that it's really great. It's not for me, but it might be for you. Regular check-ins with manager, again, not really one for me, because it depends what you term a check-in. I speak to my manager all the time. I think a scheduled check-in, I really hate them, because like if I had something to ask you, or if I needed help or I wanted to say something, I'd say it at the time I thought of it or needed it. I'm not saving it up for a later date. That's my way anyway. So just start with a couple. The body doubling one for me has been brilliant. Noise cancelling headphones, I don't like. I'm odd on that one, where I don't like to feel. I don't when I zoom in on code and I literally can't hear anything around me. But if I have noise cancelling headphones on, I feel like I'm missing something. I'm not sure what's the feel in the room. I don't like to be completely isolated in a room where other things are going on. So therefore, I really go on.
I think you'll hear Tracy and I go, we'll fight you to the death for our noise canceling headphones, but it has to do with the way my brain works. My brain is like 25 McDonald's drive-throughs, taking in orders 24/7. The ability to bring in those blinders and quiet the chaos is a huge difference for me. It keeps my battery, my ADHD battery, kind of on full, because that will drain down my battery more than anything else. I'm listening to all of that. I'm pulling in all of that. So for me, noise canceling headphones are glorious, and that I have 2 buttons on my Apple Max AirPods that I can click, and one bring in ambient noise, Two, shut off whatever music or anything else that I've got, because I play a soundtrack, and this is the absolute truth of it. I play a musical soundtrack, and Tracy has access to this on Spotify. It is the same playlist that I have had going for years and years and years. And this thing plays even when I'm asleep. I don't have my headphones on or anything, but it's playing in one of my channels in my head 24/7. You can like wake me up and say what song is playing right now. And it's like me listening to the background in a restaurant and going, oh yeah, it's Lady Gaga. I can tell you that's how it is in my head. So I appreciate the noise canceling for that reason, is that it gives me peace.
That's fair. That's like I say, I put it on because it's definitely a strategy that works for some. It's just, it was my personal. I think I don't like being disconnected, so it's, whilst it's a benefit, and I agree, because when there's too much going on, I need to not be around too much noise. I
understand you listening for things, because I think I'm always listening for things.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason I need to shut it out and stop myself from doing it.
Yeah, I think I feel vulnerable though if I'm not able to hear. And I don't have any reason to suspect anyone's going to attack me, but I think something in my brain I need to know. But I have the same solution, but slightly different. When I'm in if I'm going to a restaurant with my family, or with somebody where I want to be having a big, proper conversation, we'll actually choose, if it's a really busy and if it's a low ceiling environment, we'll go to a different environment, because
Agreed.
I cannot sit and listen to you, because I'll be listening to everybody around me.
I agree completely.
So I think, yeah, it's a different strategy for the same thing, right? Removing the background noise. Yeah, and they don't cost a lot either. Well, they can, but they don't have to.
They do. I'm going to add this one other thing. When I said that you have one button that'll bring in the ambient noise, it actually focuses to just the ambient noise right in front of you. I can actually understand and hear people in public spaces better with my Apple AirPod Max on, with the ambient noise turned on, than I can with them off my head.
That's interesting. So I don't know if I haven't mentioned it before, but whether you've heard of it. A lot of people late diagnosed ADHD are diagnosed with hearing problems, and it's not actually a hearing deficit. It's a auditory processing problem, which is why you get a lot of what did you say? And then as they're saying it, you answer.
And then processes.
You did hear me. Like, well, I know I did hear you.
Yeah.
So why did you say huh? Like, because my brain didn't brain. I don't.
And then we're answering them, and they're like, "But you just said what?" And it's like, it gave me a minute. It took me a minute to process it all, and it goes back to me saying, hey, my brain is like 25 different McDonald's drive-throughs. I'm processing information all over the place. But it also, people will use me. They bring me into a room, and go, okay, who do we need to meet in this room? Who is the important person? Who's the bosses? Who's the people that are going to be problems for us? I can read a room like nobody else. So yeah, there's that superpower again. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I know that couple are having a problem, for example, in a restaurant. Like, how do you know? Like, just do.
Yeah.
It's just
exactly.
Just a thing. I know it somehow. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So I don't know. I'm going to ask a question of anyone who are actually employing some of those strategies, but you didn't know that they were ADHD accommodations. Simon, are you anything to add? Or I don't like picking on people. That's naughty. If you want to add anything, please feel free to.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm not officially diagnosed, but I'm autistic. The reason I am interested in the ADHD side of things is because I know people that either think they're ADHD or have been diagnosed. But I have noticed, a lot of things on here I do myself, like the noise cancelling headphones. I like remote work, so there's definitely crossover even between sort of ADHD and autism as well. But there's definitely a lot here that I hadn't considered from an ADHD point of view or an autism point of view. So it's interesting.
Good. Something came in my head then. It went before I got a chance to say it. Yeah, it might come back. If it does, I'll bring it back. So these are strategies, but they do focus on problems, and you have to have well, they're not focusing on problems, but they suggest a problem. So what I want to focus on is the bit we mentioned earlier, the superpowers, because they definitely can be, and I think it's nice to go from potentially negative things to more positive. So our strengths. It's a relief after the previous one, I find, because it changes the feeling. We've mentioned it. Hyperfocus can be a massive. The ability to stay on task, which is really weird for people to understand. People without ADHD, so one of your superpowers is being able to focus really, really well. Yeah. And one of your problems is you can't focus. Yeah, we don't get it either, and most people don't have the ability to turn that on and turn it off. If you can, great, but I think most people can't. Which is really understanding. It's really hard for a neurotypical person to understand that split of unable to and massively able to. But another strength is creativity in thought and innovation. There was a quote I heard once, I can't remember, which is, I'd rather hire someone who gets bored because with technical skills, because they will automate away. I don't want to do that boring thing, so I will take the time to write whatever automation or innovation might be a bit out of the box. No one else has really considered it as a fix, but I'm able to process and go, well, this is the thing that he's doing, or this is the thing I don't like doing. I could do this thing which is kind of tangentially related, but it fixes both of those items. I'll spend a bit of time doing it, and being able to see that connection, which people don't necessarily see. Now, I'm really interested in this one, and I don't know how to find out more. If I have deep technical knowledge in a topic, whether it's a system or a process, and you ask me a question, and it's really weird because we did at the beginning with the visualization technique, I don't see things. But if I'm really knowledgeable, and you ask me a question, I will look while I'm thinking. I am looking here because if I'm thinking about that database, that's over there. It has a spatial location in my thought process. Like if you think about to use SQL, if you're joining two tables, there's one on the left and one on the right. I don't see them, but I mentally hold them in those physical locations, and I don't know how common that is. And is that a sign of being creative because you can visualize a problem? Again, not actual visuals, which is why it's a weird thing to say. Does anyone else have, if you're thinking, you look to a particular place? I'm quite intrigued whether that happens.
Yeah, I do that.
When you say look to a particular place, as in you're visually seeing it like it's sitting there on a table next to you?
No, and that's where it comes into. It's the for me it's and actually it'd be interesting for Simon because you did see a physical ball. For me, no, it's not physical. It's just if I'm thinking about that particular system, that is top left. I'm not looking at the wall or the computer or the light.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, whatever location I'm in, it's there, top left.
Yeah.
I see data as river flows. So I see a transactional system versus a data warehouse is next, then my data marts and how they all flow into each other. So kind of left to right. And then when somebody asks me about tables and stuff, I actually visualize those tables and can write SQL and everything else in my head and actually solve the problem. Yeah, I can visualize that and write it all in my head.
I do to the left and right when I'm doing things. Like when you did the table join, if I'm not visualizing, but visualizing tables, I'll look to the left and right.
Yeah,
And you talk with your hands, Tracy. I think you do like me, where you're like visualizing it.
I
and
just
also
did that. I
pointing to
just
it.
did that
Yep.
too. I just pointed left and right with my hands.
Because I do that same thing, and I'm like, so you've got table A here and table B here, and I'm like, but it's always, I will visualize it there. That's where I would visualize it. So I agree.
I just did this when
Yeah.
I was doing it.
Yeah, it helps. But Simon, because you earlier on said you do see physical. When you said you also have things which are in certain places. Is that a physical thing you see, or is it a concept?
It's more of a concept. I kind of, when I'm talking about things, I will assign them an area in front of me, but I don't actually see them, and I often point to things when I'm talking, and people are like, "What are you pointing at?" I say, "Well, that's where this is."
Yeah,
But yeah, I don't physically sort of see it really.
Yeah, no, it's the same. So that's interesting, and that sounds like it's common amongst this group at least. So yeah, that's interesting. The other side is adaptability and learning is a real strength in ADHD. If you are, which is why you see a lot of consultants, contractors, because you need to jump into a new project and you learn. I quite often am the SME on a new system about a week or two into the project because I just deep dive and consume, and it can be quite weird sometimes speaking to. They're like, "So you want an email from the previous developer who left 3 years ago, and he was the most knowledgeable in this system, but it's not relevant to today because we're doing something different." Like, yeah, show me everything. I will consume as much as possible, and then I will become the SME so that I can answer my own questions. That's where there is no SME. But even if there is one, I still, that's my natural way of being, is to learn as much as possible about very disjointed things. It can be quite weird for people to be like, so you're interested in this and this and this. So what's your hobby? Like, literally, my hobby this week is not the same as last week, and it's not the same as next week. I change hobbies really, really quickly, but I get really into them, learn them, and then the interest's gone. So it could be, so that's an ADHD tax. So sorry to do a negative again, where you end up spending more money because you get really into something and then just it's not interesting anymore. So yeah, so I can't remember who said it, but again, it's labeling the point. ADHD is not a deficit. It's literally like a different operating system, where our brains are tuned for a different situation. We're not tuned for modern life in some regards. Not sure whether it's, yeah, I'm not sure whether it's more tuned for the historical way of life. I've heard some people say that, where if you're a hunter-gatherer that far back, then it's a real advantage to be able to think on your feet quickly, to notice things which a lot of people might not notice. It's also an evolutionary advantage to be able to keep stalking that animal for 8 days in a row till you get it, kind of thing. So I kind of believe it might be, it grew as we needed it, and then we've developed this society which doesn't need it, and that's why it's viewed as a deficit. But I think we are moving back towards a world of it's not a problem. It's not the naughty child in school. Would you believe it, actually, in the UK at least, ADHD in adults wasn't actually a diagnosis that could be made until I think it was 20 years ago. It was not a thing. It was a childhood problem, and then you grew out of it. They literally had to change the diagnostic book to say actually ADHD in adults is a thing, and it wasn't that long ago, which is kind of weird. Right. I'm just conscious of time because there was someone else on a slot after me. I don't want to eat into their slot. How am I doing?
You're 15 minutes over and they're not here.
Okay, well, I can keep going if
we're having fun, so we're not complaining.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. So again, I try not to make it negative because it's not. There are really good bits, but I want to cover them so that people can be aware of them. And the imposter syndrome piece. I don't think the word appears on the slide at all. No, it doesn't. I would sum that word up, overcoming imposter syndrome up as shame. And that's hard to feel shame in your professional life, personal life, in so many parts, and imposter syndrome being the cause, the problem. And it's it's a syndrome, so it's not a feature of ADHD. It's a standalone thing, but it's linked definitely to ADHD, anxiety, perfectionism, and why I like giving these talks and why I love being in the tech community, actually, the wider tech community, because it is a community, and I think it takes a community to heal some of the damage that we do to ourselves in the imposter syndrome. Being accepted, being okay to be to express that you're not feeling great, as an example, and the self-worth. So we were talking earlier about my diagnosis wasn't that long ago. What's changed for me, because that was the question, why bother getting diagnosed? Are you going to get medicated, or are you just looking for validation, or just looking, but you know what I mean? And I didn't know what I wanted out of the diagnosis. I was just interested, I think. But one of the biggest things I have got is my self-worth is no longer tied to perceived performance, whether that's in work or personal life, because I know I have some problems with what would typically be achievements that would reward me for those. My personal self-belief would be better if I achieved these things, and conversely, if I don't achieve them, I feel bad. What I've learned is just to be a bit nicer to myself, and don't tie my self-worth to performance, and certain external performance measurement doesn't help anybody. But yeah, so it's not just about work strategies, it's about how we see ourselves. Before I was diagnosed, it says there, I felt really alone, because it's all internal. Why do I struggle with things? I mean, even after this session is going to be quite interesting, because I haven't done a session for about 6 months. I used to do talks, and people would always say, "Oh, it's really good, and I got this from it, and thank you for doing it." But in my head, I'm going, "No, I didn't do that very well," or "I didn't do that very well." And not taking praise when given, or assuming actually that it's not genuine because people are just being nice. That's actually not a problem. People being nice just to be nice is still nice. It's still that their intention is good still. It's not nefarious. So they want you to feel good. Try and take some of that. So I've waffled on, but I haven't really explained imposter syndrome. The quick version of it is I'm not good enough. So if you get and this is also a strategy for improving management of ADHD people. If you say, "Oh, have you got a minute?" My brain goes, "What have I done wrong ever in my life, and why am I about to get fired?" When really it's just, "Oh, do you want to go for a coffee?" Or "I need to talk to you about a project," and that's really useful to be able to explain to stakeholders and managers and colleagues that please don't do that. Please don't do the "have you got a minute" conversation, because my heart drops and I feel like I'm going to get fired. Totally irrational. Can't do anything about it. You could give me more detail. Don't just say that. Say something more. It's the doing the research and finding that a lot of people have imposter syndrome. People that you view as peers, that you look at and go, "Oh, that they're amazing." Guarantee you, they don't feel amazing. You put them on a pedestal. They still have, "Oh, I messed that up," or I feel like I could have done this better," but not, hopefully not too harshly critical. But they still have that same process. So the imposter syndrome is being found out. Oh, I'm in this community of awesome people. They're gonna find out that I'm not. I'm just kind of a hanger on. Does that explain imposter syndrome to anyone? Oh, did anyone not know what imposter syndrome was? Is that a new phrase to anybody?
It's not new to me, and I think the big challenge is that imposter syndrome can cover so many things. Even I myself still feel it, even though I'm a very confident human being.
Yeah.
You can still have pieces of it left over from childhood in that.
Yeah, definitely. But so point three is, and I mentioned it earlier, our brains are wired differently. But it doesn't make us less valuable, or people with ADHD are not less valuable. You're allowed to make mistakes. So hearing that your best is enough, because again, that's one when you get as a child, that's not good enough. If you could just, James is really good at the subject, but if he could just if he could just focus, he would do so much better. If he could just apply himself, that's usually the phrase. He would be really good if he could just apply himself. How I wasn't diagnosed as a child, I do not know, because I've read the previous, the school transcripts. It's clear as day, but it just wasn't as diagnosed back then. So that's why it's being diagnosed more, and it's not that it's gone up. It's just we're seeing it and doing something about it more.
Hey,
Because
James,
yeah,
question for you. I think it's easy for us to look back in hindsight and go, how did nobody see this?
yeah,
But every ADHD or ADHD I talk to, they all have that statement that they heard over and over. You're lazy. You're not living up to your potential. You're not focused enough. You need to do more. What's wrong with you?
yeah,
That I mean, a lot of demoralizing comments that we heard from as children because our brains did not work the same way as our peers. And I
yeah,
think that's one of the biggest challenges and things that are really important for us to accept is that people didn't understand how our brains worked and how we could focus on, I'm younger or I'm older, but younger people would say, I played video games and could play them for hours, but then I get to my homework and it took me 3 hours to go through one homework sheet. We see that, we understand that getting that, when we get into the medical terms of getting the activity levels and the temporal lobes up high enough so we could stay focused, it's hard. It's really hard, and people can't see that, visually see that, so they just thought we weren't applying ourselves.
yeah, yeah. The accusation of laziness, and but just to pick up on what you said, yeah, the there's definitely a phase I went through of some anger of why was this not picked up? I mean, it is so obvious, and I think it was even mentioned in passing, but nothing was done about it. I mean, because that's like, well, I could have had an easier life, but as you say, you have to look back on, and I think you always should when you look back historically, to for not for everything, but for most things, you have to take it in the context of the knowledge the people had at the time. What was their intent? Was their intent to make you, they knew a thing that would be better for you and deliberately held you back from it? No, that's almost certainly not what happened. So you have to give people the credit of they probably just didn't know.
And I don't know if anybody else went through this. I was 2 years younger than everyone in my class. They knew I had a pretty high IQ. And so I would be taken into this little cubby room between the classes. This is how our school was. We had these cubby holes between each classroom. And they would put me through IQ tests. They would have me, they tell me a story and then have me say the story back to them. All of these things. I knew I was different than the other kids. They just didn't seem to understand enough back then to figure out that it was ADHD or ADHD. I also am aware that my mother may have been she had high anxiety, and I think she wouldn't have been able to deal with it. So I know there was something going on. I know they always tested me as a child, but never was there a diagnosis, nor was I taken out of the classroom, even though I was 2 years younger than the rest of the kids in my class. I mean, it was a really weird situation. So I always felt like I was stupid, I was ugly, I didn't know what I was doing, I was a weird kid. And now I look back that I gained a lot of resilience from it. I don't think I would change it. But yes, there's always that thought. If they had understood ADHD or ADHD back then, would my life have been easier? I don't think kids would have accepted me anymore. I still would have been teased a lot and picked on. And I still think I would have had challenges with teachers who wouldn't have been trained in how to deal with the way my mind worked.
Absolutely, and 100% agree. You still would have experienced, yeah, even if we shifted timelines so that it was now, I think 95% of it would be the same. It hasn't changed. I think it's better. But you're right, I wouldn't change it. I don't have that was a phase I went through. There was definitely a questioning of could they have done something, but then I came to the realization of, well, no, not really. If they could have, they would have.
My kids went through this too. I mean, I watched them where, they're 30 years younger than I am and going through this, and the teachers are just as ill-equipped, may not have the resources to be able to deal with this. They've got too large of classes. And I'd see them frustrated with like Samuel and go, he didn't pay attention at all in class. He was out the window daydreaming. And then I'm frustrated with him and he gets 100% on the test. What did I do wrong? What did I do right? I don't understand it. And I think it is very difficult for them. And again, like I'd say, I'd come in a couple years later and they'd be frustrated with his sister, Reeves, and they didn't even realize they were siblings. And all of a sudden, that same mother who took them to task a couple years earlier when they tried to suspend is going, we love your daughter. She's so outgoing and she gets 100%. It'd be great if she would do her homework, but oh well. And I'm thinking, you didn't give that break to the older kid. Sorry.
Yeah.
So you recognize the difference. Yeah, we are much easier to see them as more outgoing, and we see that as quirks versus issues.
Yes. I think that's a fairly global change. From my experience, I guess it differs by country and by lots of different things. But my personal experience is it does seem to be less it's a problem rather than it's a difference, which as a nice change. I think that's a good thing. I just want to just on that last slide, the very bottom is, and I mentioned it was I was talking about it. My self-worth isn't tied to my work anymore. I'm doing my best, and that's enough. And the strange thing is, it's what I've always told my kids anyway. Like, I couldn't care less what your academic achievement is, as long as you've given it all that you can give it. And it doesn't mean hours and hours and hours and hours. If you haven't got that in you, that's okay as well. I just want you to be happy. We can get academia later in life. Maybe that's not for you now. Maybe it's for later. But why can't I have that conversation? Or why couldn't I have had that conversation myself? I was good at giving it out, but not directing it at myself. So if that resonates with anyone listening, try that. If you make other people feel better, try using the same language to yourself. It might help. Hope it does. And if you ever need help, I'm here. I'll chat to anyone. See if we can help. Right. So on that, self-advocacy, speak up for your needs. This is about being in work. One of the common questions is, I've got a diagnosis. Who do I tell? When do I tell? Well, it's your choice for a start. If you feel comfortable telling someone, tell them. If you don't. There's no rules there. I would say you are. If you feel comfortable disclosing, you should do, because then you could go on a journey of learning together of how to maximize performance, which is a benefit to work, but also maximize your happiness, which is a benefit to you and work. So disclose when you're ready to. I would say, and again, it's a personal choice. We're not 100% in the world where every manager is going to get it. So you might, if it's a brand new manager to you, it may not be a conversation you lead with. Maybe it is. Maybe that's your personality, your choice. I would say figure the manager out first, because there'll be a way of delivering the information that works better, especially if you're asking for help, because if that manager doesn't see it as something that requires help, your approach will make a big difference. So onto approach, it's focus on the needs, not the diagnosis label. It's not read up on ADHD and you'll be able to find out how to help me, or like, because it's personal, it's to you. What will help you? Do you need the noise cancelling headphones? Do you need focus time? Do you need the table that goes up and down? Do you need projects broken into smaller places? Especially someone who doesn't understand neurodiversity, they will understand I work better. Like Callum was saying, your manual with how to work with you is brilliant, because it's literally, we will get the best from this relationship if we can adhere to or be conscious of at least these things.
James.
Yeah.
To add to that, anybody can take this. The Clifton Skills Assessment is available from Gallup. It was recommended to me when Buck Woody was gracious enough to be a mentor. It's always nice to have an ADHD mentor that's an ADHDer themselves. Yeah. But he had recommended it to me, and I recommend it to everybody that I mentor, because it gives you the ability to share what is your strengths, a lot of your ADHD traits, without saying you're ADHD. So if you have somebody who may not be as open to it, you can still share with them. And I found that I had a really good boss when they actually read it. And I mean, it's not long, and it gives them the ability to make the most out of you and say, hey, I want to be the most productive employee I can for you. This is how I work best. So it's really cool, and it's easy to take. And I think it costs like $35, but it's been invaluable for me, because I know pretty quick if I have a good manager at or not, just by having that.
Yeah, that's good. I'm gonna look that up. Even for me, just out of interest, because I think it'll be useful to myself. So I've tried to make this relevant to America. I don't know if I got it right. I believe that if you disclose that you have a neurodiversity, or particularly ADHD, you are then protected under the I can't remember what that stands for. But the ADA you then have that protection, because
Americans Disability Act. You are
okay. Yeah, but I think you do have to disclose for that to kick in, do you? Or sometimes, yeah, okay. So when you're thinking about it, especially in the United States, there are benefits to it. I think in the UK, you are still protected under disability rules, but you will certainly have an easier time of it if you have previously disclosed. So yeah, there's that, and it's only small, but it's there. Lead with solutions, not problems. So with that, it's not I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do it. It's I work better when this is a much better delivery system. But yeah, find one that works for you. And I like the fact you mentioned a mentor, Karen, because I've got that on there, to find a mentor. Now I went to an interesting session a few years ago at SQL Bits, which was Remerit, and I think it was Buck. Was it Remerit, Buck? It was the 3 ships. It was allyship, mentorship, and I think it was sponsorship. I think it was the third one. It was a really interesting session. So just to plug SQL Bits again, it's not just tech. It's also they're really good at doing the ways of working and the ways of being, as well as the technical stuff. And I think that if I'm remembering correctly, was that a mentor, if possible, shouldn't be in the same company as you. I think an ally was in the same company as you, and a sponsor was as well. But I think so you can find it on YouTube, and I'm fairly confident in saying that their recommendation was, if you can, have a mentor that's outside of the business, because you can just take certain bits out of you don't need certain protections in the relationship if you're not actually working with or for. So
I'm gonna debate on that one. The reason that Buck, as well as George Walters, was really good as a mentor inside Microsoft is navigating Microsoft as a big company is challenging. But that would be the reason. Otherwise, I don't think a mentor needs to be in the same company you're working for.
Yeah, so maybe reframe it. Not that it'd be better out, but that it doesn't matter is probably a
Yep.
better. Okay. And so yeah, funny enough, you mentioned the having that document, building your self-advocacy toolkit, document your strengths. So, but it's slightly different to presenting it to a manager or a colleague or something like that. It's when you are having those doubts, back to the imposter syndrome, and I do this in work, and my boss actually suggested it, and I think it's brilliant, is every week, or at least every month, just make a note of what's gone well. What did you achieve? What did you manage to get done quicker, faster, cheaper? Quicker and faster, same thing. But document it. So and look at them from time to time, and then when you look at it and go, well, I've got. The idea is you have to put stuff in there, otherwise it doesn't work. Otherwise you look at it and go, I've not written anything positive for 6 months. That's not ideal. So if you're going to do it, try and stick to it. Otherwise it can bite you. But yeah, just that ability to look back, especially if you have that time blindness that we mentioned earlier. Being able to look back and go, I did do all these good things, and feel good about yourself. It also works when you come in for an annual review, to ask for more money or to change teams or whatever. If you can bring a document of these are all the things I've managed to do, it works for that as well. So it has multiple benefits. Did you want to speak, Karen? I saw you go off mute.
I didn't mean to. Apologies. I think you ended up hearing me make my breakfast. No, ignore it.
Sorry, no problems. And yeah, track your pattern. So I mentioned earlier about if you are able to identify when you can get into a hyperfocus, but also the other way, if you can notice, and I personally find this one really difficult, but if you can notice, I don't feel good, and this is what was going on at the time, but also I did really well, and this was what's going on at the time. If you can figure that out, then you can leverage it. Otherwise, you just have to be at the whim of whatever happens. But if you can figure out the goods and the bads, you can really make use of them. And in big and bold at the bottom is asking for help. Is strategic self-management. I can't express that strongly enough that you're not weak for asking for help. You're not in need of support. You would benefit from support, certainly, but it's strategic, helping yourself get better and be better and feel better, and all these things. Speak up for yourself. If someone's making you feel bad, tell them, or if there are ways to make you feel better, tell them. I feel like I focus a lot on the mental strength, rather than the work side of things, but they can't be separated. They are the same thing. You get to describe them slightly differently. Ask the other one as well. If there's an accommodation for you that works, and you feel like I shouldn't ask for that, a message to play in your head or to think about possibly: would you deny someone with a hearing problem hearing aids? Is it cheating to have something that makes their life easier? Or someone with glasses, is it cheating to wear glasses? No, that's something that benefits that person, and that's okay. You having something that makes your work better is not a deficit to somebody else. Someone wearing glasses is not a deficit to you, as an example. Just in case you have that mental thought, internal thought rather than mental thought. That's what I meant. It's okay to ask for help, is the short version of that. This is the formatting issue. I said had gone a bit weird. So support network. So the mentorship is one-to-one, but also there are neurodiverse coffee meetups where you can jump on and share experiences, share things that have worked for you. Like I've shared that body doubling a few times, and quite a few people go, that's really good, or I already do that, I didn't realize, and hopefully that particular one spreads, or anything good, hope that spreads. It's also good to be in a situation where you're amongst people who get it. They may not 100% understand everything, but they'll have a better instruction manual if they're also ADHD. I would say it's a better instruction manual. It's a weird way of saying it. There's Reddit communities, Discord communities, LinkedIn. You're in one. You're here. You're in a neurodiversity day. For is it diversity, equity, and inclusion? Is it, or I can't remember what the E stands for.
You got it.
It's equity, right? Not
Yep.
Not equality. Yeah. It's only someone explained that to me the other day. The difference I was like, okay, I'd never really understood the difference. I always thought it was equality, but no, it's diversity, equity, because that's what we're striving for, is equity, which is good. Yeah, if you feel isolated, particularly if you're new in your career, being in an environment of people sharing what they're going through, you're not alone. That can help. You could also tangentially, you might meet someone who is able to help you progress in your career. It's not the desire, but it might be a nice benefit. It happens. I've got it up there. Start with one community. Don't overwhelm yourself. I did this. I got diagnosed 3 years ago, and I joined all the Reddits. Went on all the LinkedIn's. I posted. I think I did a post every day for neurodiversity month or ADHD month. I can't remember. I went all in and fully burnt myself out. And yeah, it just takes time. I'll come back again now. So yeah, just pick one, and over time you might find it doesn't, it suits something and not others, and then maybe pick another one. But yeah, don't go too hard too fast. Does anyone in their workplace? So I've got it down here as neurodiversity employee resource groups, which is it's a name. I've heard a better name, which is the Squirrel Club, which I think is a great name. Or the Spice Club is another one.
Neurospicy.
Neurospicy. Do you have a group
Yeah.
in your organization?
We have one at Redgate, and I was very, very involved with the one at Microsoft. I'm still friends with a lot of the people. I found teammates for our actual teams inside. People like, oh, you just recommended, Neil. How do you know Neil? And it's like, it's really difficult when you're having that, but going, he'd be a great fit, and I think he should work for Israel. Israel's the right boss for him. And they're like, how do you know this? And it's like, these groups, I think it's important to find your tribe, find your people.
Yeah.
And there's, like we talked about, there's a lot of demoralizing talk that you receive as a child. And when you find your people, you recognize it pretty quickly inside the neurodiverse, universe. And that's what I loved about it. But yeah, we have one at Redgate, and we do have one we had one at Microsoft too.
Good. Yeah, so the Squirrel Club, I think, is ANS, which is a UK consultancy. And from what I hear, they do amazing things. And several people from that team group have gone on, they've left ANS now, but they've gone on to establish the same group or similar group in the new workplace, and established there's a WhatsApp group actually, for, is it called Spice? I think that's called the Spice Club. It's for all different, whatever spice you are, you're welcome. I haven't been on it for a while because I think, again, I got overwhelmed. I joined too much. So I might try and join back on. What I would say, if you take an action from attending this meeting, this session, is pick a community and check them out. You don't have to join them, but you could see if you can find one. There's on Reddit, there's ADHD and ADHD programmers. Like I said, there's this group. There's on LinkedIn. If you just search for neuro, weirdly, there doesn't seem to be much.
Can I add TikTok on there?
TikTok. Okay, interesting.
Yes, TikTok has a huge set of contributors that are ADHD and ADHD.
Interesting. I wonder if it's similar. So I've seen on Facebook on the videos, and that's where that's actually where I learned the body doubling was Roxy. She's got ADHD. Her partner's got autism, or is it ADHD? And they've got a son as well. He's got autism. And they just share. So they share body doubling. And the time blindness one as well. That was also them. She's also a really good singer. So you can get extra interest, not just the.
I know who she is from TikTok. That's funny,
Yeah.
but I know exactly who she is. And their son is ADHD too, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So I think I think the male partner is autistic, and so
Yes.
the son is ADHD. Yeah, and it's just really funny how they brilliantly express some of the challenges they have, but also some of it's just funny. Like where did you come up with that? Where's that from? And it's nice to be able to look at that sometimes and go, yeah, okay, I get that. So that's really helped me and my wife because we watch it and like, oh, we'll try that. We'll see how that interaction works, and it has. Body doubling partners, you can pay for them. I never have, but maybe it's an idea within your organization. Just literally jump on a call and be in each other's presence if you're remote. I would say try and make sure that it doesn't show you as busy because people can judge that badly. You're just looking busy all the time. You should be able to tell them where to go on that, but maybe you can't in your business. I don't know. So just be careful about if it's a thing in your workplace. Therapy. Now, actually, I've got on here CBT for thought patterns because it is recommended. I personally, and actually, I spoke with a counsellor who she thinks I'm probably ADHD. So I've never been diagnosed with autistic, but she says a lot of the traits, a lot of the things I describe are not really ADHD. They're probably autism based, which is interesting. But I just haven't sought that diagnosis, and I don't know why. It's an interesting why I don't. When I did for ADHD, maybe one's enough. Maybe I don't need another one. I don't know. I think what it is I've researched it anyway. So the benefit of the ADHD diagnosis was I did a load of research and learned a lot, and I've done that for autism as well. Therefore, the diagnosis isn't going to drive that, and maybe that's why it's not. I don't know. Interesting. But yeah, sorry. The CBT doesn't work for me at all, and I have read quite a lot that depends on obviously your particular way of being, but for some ADHDers, CBT it's just not. Sorry, just to say what that is, it's cognitive behavioral therapy, and it is really good for some people, but apparently for ADHD, it has less of an effective rate of success. Doesn't mean don't try it. There's another one. Oh, what's it called? It's actually a PTSD therapy, where, as I understand it, you have to focus on one thing, like a video, whilst questions are being asked, and it enables your brain to split apart the emotion versus the memory. I can't remember exactly what it is, but I've heard that's been really successful for because, as we mentioned, the extra little negativity you get while you're growing up. PTSD is a thing. I have read the late diagnosis, late ADHD, especially when you're over 30. The first thing therapy normally treats you for is actually PTSD, not ADHD, because it is traumatic living in a world where you don't fit. So I don't know this one particularly, specialist. Again, I tried to look at I realized it was a mostly American audience for this session at least. I believe that's a thing over there, specialist. Worth a look. Or local meetups if you're comfortable doing in-person meetups. So again, I mentioned earlier, try and find a group. It says on here, connect with one person. It starts with one. If you're here, so it's kind of preaching to converted. Maybe that's a message to take to people who don't come to things like this, that just start with one, and see where it takes you.
Meetup works really well for that too. There's ADHD groups that you can become part of. And
Yeah.
sometimes they just do social things together. They're like, we know we don't like noisy restaurants, so we won't book a noisy restaurant to go out to dinner. We want to go on a nice quiet hike. This is where we'll go. We're sensitive to sensory issues. It's kind of nice. And you get to, again, to find your tribe.
Yeah, that's been really good for me. Getting the diagnosis meant I knew who my tribe might be, and then I found that they were, which was really cool. Right. Yeah, I think I covered that slide. Oh yeah, so the goal is few quality, not a huge network. The huge network can actually work. It depends on your flavor, obviously. But that's why I say I recommend one to start with. Find your people. It's like if you walked into a sports hall full of people, your chances of having a good connection with somebody is less because you're bouncing around so many people. So try and aim for smaller first, if that works for you. You know, take everything with a pinch of your own personal flavor, because there's no right answer for anyone. Which also means if it doesn't work for you and someone said it would, that's no bad thing. That's just you haven't failed. It's just not for you. That's okay. Right, I'm going to go through these quickly. Or I might not, depends how my brain goes. But we covered these. The myth is ADHD are lazy. We're not. It's interest based. Actually, if you're watching this and you're not ADHD, you think someone is and you want to help them or something like that, they want to do that task just as much as you want them to do the task. They just can't. So find strategies, hopefully from what you've heard, that helps them, helps you, and vice versa. The inability to focus, we discussed it. Actually, it's really weird. You can be super focused and unfocused. It does happen if if the work's understimulating. So I find there's a big difference. There was a big difference for me. Had I been diagnosed with ADHD in my early 20s, I'm not sure I could have done much about it, because a lot of the work, I didn't get to choose the work I was doing. I was given that work. And I don't think I'd have been comfortable at that point speaking to bosses and asking for the accommodations. And I'm older, it comes. Let's have a look. And I mentioned accommodations of special treatment. No, we're not. It levels the playing field. Why should you not have the same? Yeah, why should you not have the same accommodation that other people get? Just because it's a neuro thing rather than a physical thing, it's no less deserving of help. Look. Yeah, and this is what I mentioned, where my self-judgment on success, what success looked like. You know, I've completed all the tasks. Well, and me and Kellen had a chat. When you get towards the end of a project, some tasks just don't get done because they're not interesting. So if you're measuring success as getting all of the tasks done, you're not going to look at yourself very favorably. You're trying to fit into a pattern that you don't fit into. So, and you need to go from this job to that job. You know, you become a senior, then you do this, you do that. But if you're interest based, I'm really interested in looking at this software, and now I'm interested in looking at that software. You may not progress upwards through time served, but you just go and look at something else. If you are enjoying life, I'd say is a good success metric. Yeah, I think I've covered most things on there. Setbacks are learning opportunities. I just want to call that out as well. If it's not a fail, don't do. It's well, why did that not work? Try and work out if you can tweak it, or it might even be if you do the exact same thing, it'll work the second time because some external factor has changed. So yeah, These all these last slides are basically be nice to yourself. Key takeaways. You're not alone. Yeah, it was 5 to 7% in the general populace. And Kellen, did you say it was 40% in tech?
37%. So yeah, I round up to 40. It's a high number in IT.
Yeah, it's really, really high. We've got some of the things which can be a problem. Focus can be a strength. I did mention sometimes you read things where it's all, and this is not a comment on what you said, Kellen. It's I've read articles which have portrayed ADHD as this brilliant thing, and actually we all want it. And like you've completely failed to even mention that there's some real problems, and if you don't acknowledge those, you're kind of, that's not fair. You know, there's things people go through. You should at least acknowledge it. Yeah.
To add in on that,
Oh.
James, as you know, in my different positions as a lead DBA and that, I've worked with DBAs where I've seen have completely been negligent of their ADHD and how it's harmed their career, harmed their roles, because they literally had not created any coping mechanism or taken advantage of tools that can address a lot of the problems that we go with, and just make excuses or blame other people. And that's when I commonly see ADHD become a true disorder, is when they're not able to acknowledge how their brain works and work with their brain and try to work against it. Oh, I don't have a problem. Everything's great. That's usually when it comes back to bite you.
Yeah, I'll buy another notepad. That'll help my timekeeping, or it'll help. No, it won't.
Oh, you just reminded me of one of my kids. Oh, make me sad. I'll buy another timekeeping notepad, Mom. I'll get it. I'll get it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's common, but and for some people it does work. So I would say my wife is ADHD, but then now I'm diagnosed, I look at everyone and say they are. So the counter to everyone saying everyone's got ADHD is now I look at people and go, I recognise that. But she buys notepads. She does use them. She doesn't finish them, but she does use them. Whereas I've got notepads where I've literally got the first page filled out and that's it. And there's one there. There's one there. So yeah, notepads don't work for me. They might work for others. If you are in a position of authority, especially the accommodations benefit everybody. It's not a special treatment. That's a phrase I hate. It's a special treatment for that. No, it's an accommodation which everyone's entitled to. Let's have a look. Yeah, so if you're ADHD or if you're an ally, these still they apply. Oh yeah, inclusion requires intention. You have to actively include people who are not included by default. So that thing of you can come if you want is maybe a silly example, but you have to understand what makes people feel included and do those things. You can't just expect everybody to be included when you send an email to the whole company. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Yeah, cool. Right, I'm coming to an end. I've got resource and support, which I've covered in the Reddit channels, LinkedIn, Discord, Twitter, which it will forever be called because it's not X. Maybe I'll get there in the end. It's like data model and semantic model in Power BI. I'm struggling to get to semantic model, but I'll get there. Therapy, like I say, it's people. Why do I need therapy for a neuroprocessing difference? Because you've probably had some stuff built up over time because you didn't know that, or other people didn't know how to work with that, etc. So it's more helpful than you'd expect, especially if the next line down, your employer provides it for free. There's no real holdback other than yourself. Yep. Time is most visible repeats. Oh, so one specifically mentioned actually is CHAD, children and adults with ADHD. So it's a group that it's for both. And I've seen some of they're not very active in the UK, but I've seen some events, which I like. I love the look of them. That it's not just very special. It's adults and kids are different. Like, no, it's let's get everyone together because we all have something to say and something we can share with each other. So relabeling the, I think this is maybe a sign of something I struggle with because I keep belaboring it. Start with one. Don't try and go all in. Just pick one. See how it works for you. If you want to find me and talk to me, LinkedIn, Twitter, or email, I'll respond. I'll probably respond on LinkedIn quickest. So look, that's it. So to end on, you are enough. ADHD is unique and it's an asset, particularly in the tech world. Even if it is 37%, it's still unique. You're still unique. So thank you for being here, and thank you for putting this on because it's obviously not that common. So the time you have all put in to make it happen, I appreciate. If anyone wants to give me feedback on this long and rambly presentation that I hope you got some use out of, there's a QR code there you can scan. That's quite new, I think, on Session Eyes, where you get feedback, which would be lovely.
That's the first time I've heard about that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
thank you so much, James. I just want to say thank you for doing all of this work and doing this long session because I enjoyed it. I don't know about everybody else, but I loved it. So I appreciate it and filling the content in there.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, James.
No worries, Simon. I'll see you all around at some point, more than likely.
Excellent. Were there any questions for James before he departs into the great unknown of the UK?
Usually get a question about medication. That's usually one. Anyone wants to
I know the chat is acting up right now, so you're welcome to come off mute and just physically ask. You said that you usually get questions about medication, James?
Yeah, well, the question is, did you seek diagnosis to get medication? Yes and no.
I know I did.
Yeah,
I
yes.
did.
I was interested.
See, as a woman, I'm now 58 years old, and I was diagnosed in 2005. For me, I was working as a database administrator. And my peer, I was working with somebody who was my mentor at that time, James Koopman, who was awesome. And all of a sudden, I noticed people would come into the room and they'd be talking to me, and it was like from a Peanuts cartoon, the teacher, blah, 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 Kellen, blah, blah, blah. All the words just started going through me, and I'm like, what's going on? And found out that I had an estrogen drop, which is normal for women around that age, that estrogen dropped. And if you have ADHD or had ADHD as a child, suddenly your ADHD symptoms come back like 10 times what it was. And so I was really bothered by this. And James saw my face and he says, Kellen, are you all right? And I'm like, I didn't hear one word that person said, because as you talked about earlier in your session, I'd come up with this really creative way of going, I'm really busy here. It'd be wonderful. You could just follow that up with an email. Really appreciate it. Thank you. And it was me trying to compensate for what was going on inside my head that was blowing me away. And I brought in all of my coping mechanisms I could to deal with some of these ADHD symptoms that had returned, because my autism was always there, but my ADHD had gotten much better as an adult with estrogen. And so I went in and got fully diagnosed, and I said, I need some help. I will be driving down the road and looking at a light while the kids are just being kids in the back seat. And I'm like, is it red or green? Is it red or green? I can't focus long enough to know if a light is red or green. And that puts my children at danger, me at danger. I think there's a problem here.
Yeah.
And so because I have an odd medical history, they said, we can't put you on traditional ADHD medications such as Vyvanse, and there's other ones, but they put me on Strattera, which is a non-controlled substance. I had read all up about it because I do that. I take in all the information.
Yep.
And I had found out that it only works for about a year. But for those that were taking it just during the weekdays, it seemed to continue to work. So I've done that since 2005. And I had accepted a job as the lead DBA right during that time when I first started it. And I walked in and they had one of those open floor plans with the low, cubicles and everything. And I'm like, I'm gonna die. This is horrible. And they had no white noise generator, nothing. I'm like, this is going to be horrendous. And I'm starting to take the Stratera and I'm realizing I'm surviving. It's like blinders. It's just bringing it in. It's making my life a little easier. And with noise canceling headphones, what they were back then, I was actually able to do my job. And it was a high stress one. It was my first lead DBA job. Remember we were talking about the guy who remembered that I had fired my boss that walked in? This was this job. Okay, this was this job back in 2004, 2005. And so, I mean, it was a high stress situation. I'm like, I'm going to fail. I know it. I'm not going to survive. But Stratera made this huge difference that it was able just to bring the blinders in and allow me to focus that brain power that I have. And I'm very confident in saying, I know I've got a lot of brain power, but to be able to focus that was a huge shift from me being scattered all over the place before. So Stratera was a huge shift for me. My children, on the other hand, my oldest did take medication throughout school. He still takes it today. My daughter did not. She is now starting Stratera as an adult. Stratera works much better on adults than it does children. And my youngest stayed on 5 milligrams of Ritalin throughout his entire childhood. Never raised it. It was mostly to address hyperactivity because teachers would be freaked out that this child couldn't sit still. He had my high IQ, he got great grades, but they would freak out that he wasn't sitting in his desk. And he just finally came to me and said, Mom, I would like to be on medication. And that was the reason. So 2 of my kids have been formally diagnosed. The middle one did not get diagnosed until as an adult, and she just recently did that to get on Stratera. So there's my story on it.
That's really interesting. They tried me on Ritalin first in the UK because I think it's because it's the cheapest one, to be honest, because it's been around so long and it's available in generic form. And then I'm now on Elvance, which is the UK version of Vyvanse. It's the same active compound. And I don't always know, because people are like, does it make a massive difference in your life? And like, I don't always feel it. But then there are moments of realization, and this, my wife has asked me before, not necessarily to share this one, but I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. When we've had arguments in the past, I would essentially, I need this argument to be over because I didn't know this, but because I was overwhelmed or stressed or whatever, and so I would say whatever I needed to say, even if it's the most horrible thing, because I need the argument to end. Even if I don't mean the thing, I'll say it because I need the argument to end. And after being medicated for about 2 months, probably 3 months actually, and we were having a disagreement, and I was able to catch in my brain the thing I would have said to end it, and to look at it in my head and go, yeah, that's not necessary. It's not relevant to what we're discussing. She doesn't hate you because, I don't know, maybe I didn't do the dishes, maybe she did something. I can't remember what it was. But it's not a we're going to divorce situation. You don't need to do that. And that's what medication gave me. It gave me the ability to actually have a thought, look at it before speaking it, and decide, no, that's actually not needed. Which was, yeah, so if there are that's a benefit. It's certainly nice not to hurt the people around you and have the choice to do that.
I think when you break down a lot of what we deal with ADHD as a loss of self-control, those temporal lobe activity levels go down and we have trouble controlling it. And you say, you know, hyperactivity is a loss of control where, jumping on things, I'm climbing. I remember my mother constantly going, Kellen, get down off that, Kellen, don't climb on that, Kellen, sit down, Kellen. I remember that. But even speaking fast is a loss of self-control. We're speaking very, very fast, and it's very much more women have that than men for their hyperactivity. But then we start saying, we said something we didn't mean. It's a loss of control. ADHD medication many times gives us that self-control back. It raises up those activity levels so we have control over our brain. And that means we have control to shut things out. We have control to focus things in. It makes all of a sudden you're seeing your brain more like a mechanism and more like gears, and how you can get it to actually click in and get into focus and actually run like a well-oiled machine. And that's where medication comes in. And I will also say diet came in for my children. My children will tell you I was horrible to grocery shop with. They weren't allowed anything with over 9 milligrams of sugar. They had to have a high protein. They kept low salt because that way they wouldn't crave the sugar. I didn't do any artificial colors. So their friends would come over and go, why do you have the strangest snacks on the planet? You know, but the reason I did was to keep them so that they didn't have to medicate as much, because what you put in your body overall can affect it as well. So I would do that with exercise and do that with their diet and everything else, so they didn't have to have as much medication. I mean, it was really interesting how all of it could affect it, because I would hear from a teacher, you know, Josh was doing so well today, and then after lunch, I couldn't get him to sit still at all. And I'm like, well, what happened? And oh, well, he did so well during the morning. We let him get a candy out of the candy jar. And I'm like, you gave him sugar? Really? Do we need to talk about this? It's just par for the course that you start to realize things affect you. And it's the same thing with caffeine. You can give me a Trente Starbucks espresso and I'll be fine. I'll go right to sleep. Yep. Caffeine doesn't affect me like other people. So we are affected by things a little differently.
Yeah, no, I'm the same with coffee. It's caffeine. It's a Red Bull or a Monster or anything like that. It's not. I don't get the same feeling that other people describe.
Yeah.
I don't know why I still drink it, because objectively isn't actually that tasty, but I still do drink it, which is weird. I'm going to end on a final revelation, which, because well, it's gone now, but I had hairs rise up on my arms as I realised when you mentioned about control. Normally,
yeah,
when I have done presentations and I've told people, I have to watch the presentation back, because I leave the room. I'll be there talking, but my consciousness has gone elsewhere.